So I would like to start with presenting our first, this is not by order, but our first entrepreneur. I would like to kind of wait for us, Lahav Deri, a young, innovative business developer. Lahav is a real estate investor in the US market and one of the founders of the Staying Together initiative, which we're going to hear about in a second. I would also want to welcome Ronnie Flemmer. Hi, Ronnie. Since 2002, Ronnie has served as the founder and CEO of Or Movement. The movement goal is to develop and settle the Negev and the Galilee areas and work toward holistic solutions for young people and affordable housing in the periphery. During the COVID-19, Ronnie was one of the leaders of the One Heart operational room. Waiting to hear about that as well. Last but not least, I want to welcome Nir Kuris, who is the leader of the World Hackathon Day initiative. Nir manages executive networking relations with decision makers in organization at the national and international level. He's a senior professional and a pioneer of strategic digital marketing in Israel. He built hundreds of companies via various of social media channels, such as YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Google, and etc. Welcome, guys. We are super excited to have all of you here. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with all of you guys so we can start the presentation and your comments and thoughts and ideas. So we are going to share the screen right now. Okay. Should have read your bios with your pictures, but I'm assuming that our participants were able to see you also on the screen and smiling in live and not only a frozen picture. So we are more than excited to start with your ideas. We're going to call them solutions, but the process we're going to go through together now is understanding not the end goal of a solution, but actually going with you guys from the understanding that there was a problem. What triggered you as entrepreneurs to find the solution and how we led it from an idea to real life, which I'm pretty sure that any one of us can implement that kind of thoughts and actions into our daily life and to big projects that we want to lead in the future. So I would like to invite the entrepreneurs of this amazing relevant initiative called Staying Together. So I'm not going to do it. So go ahead, unmute yourself so we can hear a little bit.
Hi guys, how are you doing? Yeah, you can hear me?
Perfect.
Okie dokie. Ellen, thank you for the introduction.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'll start by let's just go through the this whole thing and how it started. The solution is very simple. So during this whole time of quarantine and the coronavirus, I started actually working, volunteering with Lev Echad. So Ronnie Palmer is a disclosure, is my boss, kind of. And during this time, we had this, not me really, but one of my friends, she came to me and she said that, what do you think all the people do in the hospitals? Because when you think about it, they're staying in the hospitals and they're quarantined. So I don't know if any one of you were in the hospital and see how this whole sector of quarantine with the coronavirus work. But basically, what happens is that a nurse needs to take around 2 hours to go inside the place, and she can't really stay more than 3 hours because it's sweaty and it's with all the gear and everything. And then she leaves. So it's very hard to give attention to those patients. And I don't know what about you, but I found myself 200 times, I don't know, during this period, just FaceTiming people. And I have a lot of friends in New York, in Europe, in Israel. I was just bored. I was just quarantined myself. And I just thought, what do those people do? And when you think about it, some of those people, not some of them, the majority of those people are very old. And I don't know what about your parents, but my parents don't know how to use FaceTime or Zoom or Skype. So we just looked at each other and we said, let's do a little research. Let's see what's going on in the hospitals. And what we realized is that no one is really giving it attention. No one is really aware I mean, everyone knows it's like a good thing to help people see each other and communicate with the families, but no one really gave it attention. So that's how the idea came up. And you want to move on to the, yeah. So what's the solution? The solution is, I will start by saying the solution is basically supplying a very easy to communicate tablets with all the different apps like Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, whatever, with a nice stand that people that are lying down, wherever they are in the hospitals, 80 years old, 90 years old people can just easily communicate without having to do anything. And we do it by basically connect them from far. From basically, there's like a headquarter, a technological headquarter that sits and can communicate, put them in touch with their families. But I would say that the real solution is the awareness. That's what we try to create. We try to push as many of those kits, like those tablets, to those hospitals to create a standard, to create the feeling that I can only think about one thing worse than dying from a disease, and it's maybe dying alone from a disease. And we had so many stories of people in the worst case scenarios, people just being able to say goodbye to their families, being able to say goodbye. And we had many cases of people just talking to their families and 2 days later just passing away. And it's very significant, as you can imagine. So that's the solution. What's the method? So,
yes.
yeah.
When you talk about method, maybe you can also talk a little bit about the process of solving the small things that you found out that are going up through the way, because it's such an epic idea. It's so simple for such a big need, but I'm sure that on the way we had a lot of small frictions that you were supposed to fix. So maybe you can take us through that.
Yeah. So we try to create something that is comfortable, that everyone can use pretty easily, that the nurse won't have to use at all. They just can leave it in the room and let go. And don't forget that we have around 1 tablet to 7 people in each department in the hospitals. You need to make sure that you have the right family seeing like the right patient, and not having those mixtures. So we tried to buy like a few things that can see what can work, what can easily work, be attached to the beds, and then we just try to manage it as best as possible from far, which was the most important thing for us, because nurses, many times the nurses have time to put those tablets, but my whole process in this whole thing was, what do we do when there's a second wave and it's much worse? Now, of course, it's not necessarily going to happen. It's not necessarily going to happen that we're going to have a second wave. And if we will have a second wave, it's probably not going to be as bad. But the human race has a tendency to always assume that, once we had something going on, okay, that's it. It's done deal, we can move to the next thing. That was another thing we need to kind of like implement in the hospitals, in the staff. And the method was basically going through hospitals. Some hospitals are very poor. Some of them are more wealthy and can afford those things. But the most important thing is to see what they need, and are they making sure that their patients are getting those things? Because today, in any hospital, I don't know about in Europe or the US, but in Israel, every bed has a TV. It's a standard. And so we try to create a certain new standard for people, that because today, more and more with more and more patients in this situation, I think hospitals understand more like the necessity of putting those things in each bed, because it's the most important thing to the family, to the patient.
If I may
That's
ask
it.
another question just about the method, could you give us a little bit of understanding from the family's side if they want to call their
Yeah,
family
great
member?
question.
How do they operate? How does the nurse knows who to go to and so on?
Great question. So what we did is first I have to say again who's our basically like clients or crowd. We had a lot of a population from the religious sector, which doesn't even carry any smartphones. Can't I mean, it's not they don't have any. And second of all, people that are very old, that are the majority of the sick people, that really can't communicate. Like I mentioned, I know for us, for our generation, it seems very easy, but for them it's not. It's simply not. I don't know. I talk to my grandmother sometimes, and she it's on FaceTime, and she's just keep it on in her next to her ear. Um, so don't assume it's that simple for them. And now for your question, what we did is we had the social workers of each hospital kind of like maintaining the relationship with us and creating like offering the solution to the families. And then we ran like a schedule for each family, and we were able to give them tablets as well. So each one of them had a connection to the patient, and during like with the schedule, we were able to basically see who needs to speak with who. Simple.
One last question before we move on. I would like to know, as an entrepreneur, how big was the leap from, or the jump from having the idea to the really execution part? Was it easier than you expected? Was it harder? Funding, the tablets probably not easy. A little bit about that, moment of from being in your mind saying, oh my God, this is what we need right now, to really executing it and going through it as it runs, but especially like that moment of saying, how do I get myself together to make it happen, and what was your reaction when it started?
So I wouldn't say it was very difficult. It was hard to get the funds, obviously, because you really need. I'm going to give one example about why it's so difficult. I had one of the people that donated to us quite a significant amount. Is from the U.S. and what he asked me is basically, look, you're coming to me. It's one of the late donators. And he said, you're coming to me with this, but basically I see that things are relaxing and things are, again, human nature. And everything is okay. And we don't need so many, I mean, there are barely people in the hospitals. And what I tried to tell him is that, and I'm going to use a sad example, it's 9/11. If I came to you and said a day before 9/11, would you basically put bulletproof doors for the pilots? Would you do it? And you would say, no, why would I do it? So we're very smart after the act. And that's what I tried to implement in the hospitals, in the staff. So I wouldn't say it was very difficult. It's just something that sometimes it just needs to happen. It just needs to happen. So
yeah. Thank you. Last but not least, we asked all of our entrepreneurs here that joining us today to give us a few tips for anyone who has a project. So if you can think one or two of if someone has a great idea, what should be the first tip you give them to execute their idea into a real initiative?
So I would say the most important thing, and I think it's obviously this is an initiative that is there's no profit in it, but it's true for business or that's what I believe. Keep it simple. You don't have to think about a very complicated solution, so you will feel like you need to justify something for the hospital. Sometimes keeping it simple is better. Sometimes it's just something that needs to be done. Another thing that I would say is never assume that someone else is doing it. And if there is, I mean, obviously, just you need to check for yourself and never say, yeah, someone is taking care of it, because that's what we thought initially. The second thing is, if someone is doing it, don't assume they do it good enough.
Smart.
That's what we learn.
Beautiful. Last but not least, maybe one of the questions that probably all three of you are facing. What is happening the day after?
I'm sorry, can you see me?
Yes, we see you.
Yeah.
So the day after Corona, where does this initiative go? Does it stay only for pandemics? Does it go with us to the future? Is it a new dawn for connection with patients?
Yeah, so I think that's the most interesting subject, because it's irrelevant if we'll have another wave or two more waves or whatever. We try to create a solution that anyone can operate. So the way we did it is basically we're taking all those kits, those tablets, back to Lev Echad. Lev Echad, Ronnie Palmer's organization that basically operated us and helped us with the funds and everything. And I want to create an operating program for the next crisis. So I don't know if I'll be there. I don't know if I'll be able to operate the same operation when it's going to happen again. Hopefully not. But we're very busy in creating some kind of an operating program that anyone can just open, the drive or whatever, and see what can be done with easy steps. Again, like keeping it simple. So, and the way we do it is basically that's my test for it. Is if a group of people that wants to do something and help would open this whole box of folders of what we did, will they be able to understand what we did without asking us any questions? And that's what we're trying to create. And the second thing is the awareness. It's really it's the most important thing. I would love to have every hospital giving some kind of a budget to those things, to people that can communicate, because some people have a smartphone and it's great. Some people don't, but it's very important for a patient to have, and you just need to put yourself in their spot.
Absolutely.
It's very important for them to have quality communication.
Thank you so much, Lav. That was fascinating.
Thank you.
I love it. Guys, before we move on to our next entrepreneurs, I welcome you to send any questions you might have for Lav, and maybe a thought about your country and where you're from. Would this kind of initiative work for you? Would it something that you could see yourself organizing, or something similar? Do you have something similar where you come from? Would love to read your thoughts.